Here we are midday on a beautiful spring day in the Pacific Northwest. But of course, and our epic tabby Fairfax, for those of you just listening, has shown up, is interested in the birds, is thinking about spring as all of us in the Northern Hemisphere ought to be free to do. And yet we are constantly compelled now to think only about the new current thing. You know, what is it that has grabbed us and dragged us this week into a frenzy of anger and retaliatory social media posts and frustration and depression sometimes and anxiety and, you know, all of the things that keep us at fever pitch, far from our best selves, far from being the most productive, creative, caring, loving, compassionate people that we can be. So I thought briefly this moment that the new current thing, the new current thing, as you have said before here, was, I believe, Mark Andreessen's framing a couple many weeks ago now, basically when Russia invaded Ukraine and suddenly no one's talking about COVID and everyone's talking about Ukraine and everyone's replaced needles with Ukrainian flags in their Twitter avatars, etc. Andreessen said something to the effect of the new current thing is what we're allowed to talk about.
We are allowed to be nuanced about somehow he pointed out that we were allowed to be nuanced about the last current thing, but you're not allowed with the current thing.
Right. And, it's not, the nuance is the being allowed to have nuance is going to take time, right? So, we're not really allowed to have nuance about COVID yet.
Oh, no, you and I never will be. That was my extension of this principle, is that we will never be vindicated no matter how right we were, because that's not how it works. You can't very well vindicate people who were trying to be nuanced in real time. Otherwise, you validate the concept of being nuanced.
But if you were certain before, you're now allowed to quietly change your opinion without ever acknowledging it in any way and move forward.
Right. And in fact, the powers that be, that presumably, whether they orchestrate these things or not, love the current thing, right? Because it keeps us so divided when otherwise we might recognize what's going on. Those people, they actually really like the folks who rush in, a day late and a dollar short with the nuance, because the point is that is who we then will herald as having been correct in order not to vindicate the process of being nuanced in real time.
That can be pointed to as if that is the success of democracy and discourse and all such.
Yep.
So the new current thing could have been the release of, I've seen it variously reported, but many tens of thousands of pages of documents from Pfizer this week. That's a lot of documents. Go on.
Which was on the calendar. The date when it was going to be released was no surprise to anyone.
We have not gone through the many tens of thousands of pages in the Pfizer documents. And in fact, we've both looked at it a little bit. Search in any browser of your choice, be it, go Big Brother and go Chrome, or go Brave, or go, anywhere in between.
Go Brave or go home. That's my feeling.
Go Brave or go Chrome.
No. Terrible.
I know, but so search in any browser on Pfizer data release or Pfizer documents. Don't put in the words like data dump. Don't put in the words that clearly have the connotation of the people who already have an opinion about this. Put in as neutral search terms as you can, and at least as of mid to late morning Pacific time today on May 4th, 2022, nobody in the mainstream media is saying word one about this massive, this is the second of what's to be many, court-mandated release of documents. And it was, as you said, on the calendar, and no one's saying anything about it. And given that the mainstream media isn't saying anything about it, it can't possibly be the new current thing, right? It's not allowed to be. Pfizer is not the new current thing.
Right. I want to point out about this mandate. Pfizer wanted to wait 75 years before delivering these documents. The court forced them to do it on a rapid schedule, and there are bombshells in all of it. And I don't know what all is in this one. It's going to take time for people to carefully sort it out, but there are certainly indicators in there about what Pfizer knew and didn't know about the effect of its vaccines on pregnant women, on breastfeeding women,
And on the disease itself that it is supposedly vaccinating against.
And on the disease, the efficacy is the correct term of its vaccine relative to the outcomes, the contracting COVID. And what was the last thing that was? I don't remember, but anyway, there are a number of interesting things in there that are definitely going to unfold over time. But of course, we probably won't hear very much about them because the new current thing is so irresistible.
Yes, the leak from the Supreme Court and the future of Roe versus Wade is the new current thing, of course. So that is what we're going to spend some time talking about today.
Yes. Now, I do think we have to pressure test Andreessen's point about the current thing, right? And I do think one challenge to it is that we have had something like 4 current things in the last few months in rapid succession. And maybe that is part of the model. Maybe that this, to me, one always has to wonder whether or not the events that we see are fully organic, which is unlikely, fully synthetic, which is unlikely, or some mixture of the two. And so which of these things are orchestrated to capture our attention and keep us nicely divided so we don't recognize our common interests? Which of these things are just the unfolding of history in the way that it will? We don't know. But it is
augmented and exacerbated by the speed of communication that is not just possible, but almost required by social media.
Right. And so, we've had everything downstream of COVID was the current thing for a very long time. We've had Ukraine. We've had Elon Musk, Twitter, and free speech.
We've had Leah Thomas.
We've had
winning women's swimming.
Right. So we've had these
winning, for those just listening, was
brief
scare quotes.
We've had these brief current things, which may or may not. Yeah, we will have to ask Mark what he intended and which of these things he thinks counts, or whether they all fit because they simply do the job of keeping us at each other's throats. But nonetheless, it is certainly worth everything. We are going to talk extensively today about the current thing because what choice do we have?
No, I guess I think I framed it kind of that way too, and I wanted to walk that back a little bit. We have a lot of choice, and in fact, in general, it is not in our interest or your interest, our audience, or anyone's interest to feel compelled to think on and listen to thoughts on the new current thing, because we are being told that that is what one must think on, is precisely the opposite. But in this case, there is sufficient overlap both with our expertise and many of the other cultural things going on at the moment that we are going to do so. Whereas by comparison, for instance, we said very little about Ukraine.
This is true. And I also do not mean to imply that we actually have no choice but to talk about whatever is being delivered. But in your case and my case, there's actually every reason that I think we need to talk about this one, that there is, in fact, a lot of content relative to what it means that Roe v. Wade is likely to be overturned here, that is explicitly biological and evolutionary, and frankly, trying to do this without those pieces of toolkit available is A, incredibly dangerous, and B, a fool's errand, right? Yeah. These things are highly relevant. So I think in your case and my case, we don't really have a choice, but I was being facetious about of course, we must talk about whatever they want us talking about.